Hey YouTube, I haven't made a video in a while, so I figured I would make one. I was busy building my eagle's nest in the shop here. I'll flip you around. It's basically, I built an office in my shop, a place that I could get away, crawl away, and just hide out. Storage for my stuff that doesn't belong in the shop and my girlfriend won't allow me to have in the house. So I'll flip you around. You can see the eagle's nest. So you look around my shop, packed. But up there, I built a little loft. So creepy skeleton. That's the front end off the 63. Anyway, I'll take you upstairs and we'll check it out. I got all these signs at an auction. Basically, okay, here's the upstairs. Turn that light down. But anyway, storage for all my little goods. Place for me to hang up. I'm gonna put a TV up here. Bird's eye view of the filth. Alright, but now that this project's done, I started thinking about it. I mess with buses all the time, and I've built them start to finish. All the metalwork, repairing the rust, pulling motors out, putting them in, transaxles, steering. Again, you know, I mostly focus on the air ride suspensions with TWVW. But the one thing out of all these years that I haven't really done was build a motor. So with all the time I've got on my hands right now, I figure I would mess around trying to fire up some of the machines and build a motor. And I thought it would be interesting because I am a guy who has never built a Volkswagen motor before. So maybe I could relate to some of you who might be interested in building a motor. Might not, but if you're interested in building a motor, I could be an example of what to do, what not to do, the trials, the tribulations, and maybe if I could do it, you could do it, or whatnot. But either way, I just want to mess around with it. I want to. I bought a bus, a 59 SO23 camper that came with a motor they were attempting to build. So a lot of the parts are there. But this was back, they were trying this back in the 80s, so a lot of the parts may or may not be usable. I don't know yet. So We'll go over in a minute here and look at all those parts, but I figured, being a tool addict that I am, I have all the tools necessary to bore out the cylinders, check all the measurements, everything basically necessary to build a motor. I don't have anything to line bore it or anything like that, but I'm hoping this case doesn't need it. But again, that's what this video is going to be about. We'll do the measuring and kind of blueprint the inside of the motor to see where it's at, because I don't know what these guys did or did not do to the case. I believe right now, at least my intentions are to build some sort of stroker motor, 92 millimeter jugs, and I don't know, maybe a 78 millimeter crank. Not sure yet, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there, if it's even feasible to get there. The idea of this is to build as low of a budget motor as possible. Nothing fancy, no forged pistons, no forged crank. I mean, everything will be cast. I'm not supercharging, turbo, and put nitrous on this thing or anything. I just kind of want a little more low-end torque as a backup motor for the single cab. And, you know, it'll be messing around, learning something new. I am a Volkswagen addict, so with that in mind, you know, I think at one point I should actually attempt to mess around with the motors, even though locally there's a guy that builds motors for reasonable, and that's how I've always been. I just basically, if I smoked a motor, I would have another one built by this guy. So I figure I'll give it a shot myself. Not a big investment, considering I've got the majority of the parts. And, you know, it may give me reasons to buy more tools. To me, with my tool addiction, I love going to auctions, machine auctions, manufacturing facilities that are closing down, estate sales, and whatnot, and picking stuff up. A lot of people get a rush from gambling because they're winning money. To me, who stop gambling, I get the same exact rush by saving money. So with the auctions, it helps me, because say I'll get you know, a boring head, a Criterion boring head that's typically, you know, $400 or $500, and I get it for $40. To me, that's a rush. So now it's time to fire up some of these tools I've been accumulating for a while and attempt to get this motor put together. So enough jabberjawing. What I'll do is we'll go down there and we will take a peek at what I have to start with. Alright, so I'll bring you back, and well, I'll just walk you down there, because we'll come down from the eagle's nest here. That's the SO23 that this motor came out of. Well, it didn't come out of it. That's the motor they were attempting to build. That originally had a 36 horse. So this is all the stuff that I acquired with it. Now, it's more than likely the majority of it's not going to be used, but we'll go through it. Let's start off with the case. That's probably the most important thing that I'm going to use. This is an AS41 case, universal. It's got the bus mount, but I think it'll be a good foundation If you look, no machine work has been done in there, at least I can't tell, but we will go through and measure everything. It looks like stock bore. I examined the case. It didn't look like there was any cracks or anything funky. The only thing, there is a bit of deterioration from sitting around. The only thing that I saw is that tab is broken off. So I'll be able to weld onto that and re-tap a hole for that. It doesn't affect any of the oil passages or any of the functionality of the actual case. So, or at least I don't think it does. So with this, we're going to attempt to full flow it. We're going to try doing what's called Hoover mods. We're going to try to bore out these cylinder openings, and then, if necessary, clearance everything for a stroker. You know, it's going to be a long process. There's going to be multiple parts to this over probably a long period of time, but I think it'll be worthwhile, because I've always wondered how this is done. You know, I mean, what are these people doing to put these bigger jugs in? What are they doing to measure the correct bearing space, and what does that mean, and all that. So with that, I think it'll be pretty much educational for both of us, or all of us, and you know, worthwhile for sure. So the case, now of course it needs to be cleaned up. Once I clean it up, we'll check it out a little further. But I mean, everything looks pretty smooth, like either it's been line bored at one point, or it's stock. So we'll take those measurements and find out later. Hopefully it's stock, because I mean, it's smooth. Also, that came with it, set of single port heads. It looks like they were rebuilding them, even though I think they rebuilt them wrong. It looks like they put the springs in upside down. Now this stuff's been sitting around for 20 years in that bus there. So there's the heads again. Looks like brand new valves in there. We'll have to check to see if there's seating. I don't know if I'm going to use those, because I wanted to use dual port heads, but you know, if I can't dig up one in a box somewhere, a decent set of dual port heads to rebuild, then those are going on there. Extra set of rockers for parts. The adjusters are worn out and beat up. They're not rounded anymore. So, parts. Crank, again, they got the timing gear on there, so I don't know why. And the main, maybe they just didn't get it off yet to replace this main bearing. But either way, that probably will not be used. Here is a stock, or what appears to be a stock VW cam. Although it's dirty, we'll have to clean it up. I mean, I don't see any sort of wear or anything on it. I mean, it almost looks brand new. Looks like some assembly lube. I mean, there's still some Dykem or something on the cam. So we'll clean that up, see what it is. Might be good for a backup for something. Original made in Germany rods. I believe them to be original. There's still and I think they're brand new too, because where the piston pin goes, there's no blemishes, and there's still that strange coating that stops them from rusting on there. And I don't know if they're original V-dub. I don't see any Volkswagen mark on there, just made in Germany. And it does have the little, or they do have the little notch on there. So that's cool. Those may or may not be used. I don't know. Here, a lot of the stuff's cool because it's from the 80s, and these are parts he bought new in the 80s that have been sitting around that are probably better quality than what's made today. So what this is, it came out of that box. It's the oil pump. Needs to be cleaned up. Made in Germany. Definitely needs to be cleaned up, but again, this one will get full flowed, so I think it's that port that gets clogged up, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Anyway, the maker of that is LMB. Original. Made in Germany. Don't know if they're any good, but looks good to me. Price is right. I own it. Distributor drive gear. This one goes on the crank, from my understanding. Spacer. Oil splash. I mean, again, I've seen all this stuff, but I've never messed with it. Brand new push rod tubes. Well, not brand new, they've been sitting around for 20 years, but new enough to use. Plenty of original push rods. I don't think I'm going to be using very heavy duty springs. No major cam action going on, so these will probably work out fine. It came a couple coils. Not sure if those are good or not, but I'll bet you they are. Came with this distributor. Brand new. Or at least brand new way back then. I mean, this thing is clean. There's the part number. I don't know if these are good distributors or what, but if you know anything about them, let me know. But I think I may run with it because the thing was brand new and never run. So, distributor hold down clamp. Came with 3 fuel pumps, which is cool. This is original Volkswagen, made in Germany, but this one's definitely used. She's been run. You can see in there. Might be good for a backup on something. Put it in the parts box just in case. This one here looks pretty cool. This one, made in Italy, Torino. Freaking fuel pump looks Italian, doesn't it? Looks like Italian or a titty. Either way, it's pretty cool. I don't know if it works. It does. This one is used. You can see the wear mark. So the one I probably will use, assuming it works, which you don't see very often anymore. Bam! Made in the sweet ass US of A. That is nice. Brand new. Well, brand new 20 years ago probably, but Gasket's in good shape, still soft. I'll bet you, I mean, it's been stored in a dry environment. I'll bet you that sucker pumps. Either way, that's awesome. There's the fuel pump drives, 2 blocks. These are rod bearings. I'll try. Brand new. Sorry for the shakiness. I don't know. I may buy new bearings. I don't know if you know anything about the quality of old bearings compared to new bearings. Let me know your recommendations. Bearings aren't very expensive, but if these are okay, I mean, why not? They're brand new. They've just been sitting around. They are. They are engineered for the doctor of motors. That's the doc. That's the doctor himself. Look at that guy. Come on, focus in. What's up, Doc? Anyway, Perfect Circle engine bearing set. On the bearing itself, it says Clevelite. What the heck did I just do with that? Anyway, these are cam bearings, but it looked like they were attempting to build this thing because this is some old assembly lube in there, and they got the cam bearings in there, so we're gonna need new ones of those. The cam followers are in there, and the assembly lube they used on those pretty much dried up, so we're gonna pull those out. We'll get a new cam and lifters or cam followers. These are a brand new set of main bearings. Made in Brazil. These things are pretty heavy duty. They're definitely steel rather than aluminum because, I mean, I would assume they are. They got a little bit of patina on there, but they're brand new. And they're pretty weighty. They did say, somewhere I saw it, I think on the box, standard, which we'll find out when we do our measurements, but we'll see if this crank has ever been reground or not, or the thrust or anything like that. I mean, I really don't think it has. I think we're in good shape and we can go standard. Okay, here's an old main, which are infamous for leaking, so I'll probably just buy a new one of those. This is the seal that goes on the flywheel. I don't know what that seal is for yet. Got some nice original hose clamps. The heater, probably, heater tubes. The strainer. Oil cooler, which I think will clean up. It's got the larger openings and the embossments on there, so you don't have to run the washers, if you know what I'm talking about, from my understanding. And all this stuff is hardware. For what? I'll probably buy new hardware for a lot of it, depending on budget. These are parts to rocker arms and more cam followers. Probably get replaced. What's cool about this, which would be good backup, all these bags have the hardware in it. There's spring washers, there's metric bolt, metric nuts, studs. So those will come in handy. Stock the shelves. Starter. Don't know if it's good or not. Highly unlikely. Couple generator stands, which, no big deal there. Couple pieces of tin, and then some random bologna, which I don't know. Anyway, so here it is. That's the game plan. What I will do now is develop the game plan a little further, because like I said, it's going to be multiple parts. But I really wanted to dig into this thing and clean it up, cut it up, and try getting to a what actually needs to be done to stroke this thing out and just make a good, reliable, low compression motor. Alright, I will bring you back for part 2.